Hello and welcome to this short presentation on the Amazon THT 100EL2 turnstile. In this presentation today we'll talk about installation, integration, settings and adjustments, safety inspection and maintenance. With the installation of this product, there's packaging, anchoring, the floor layout, mounting the base plate, barrier and shield assemblies, rotor assemblies, rotor infill assembly, canopy assembly, canopy connections, and the canopy covers. The packaging of the equipment can be shipped in two separate packages, a U.S. shipment and an overseas shipment. Each shipment will contain either the U.S. crate with the canopy crate or the overseas crate along with the canopy crate. In the chart above, you can see the different lengths, widths, and weight of the different crates that the equipment will arrive in. Anchoring the equipment, the first thing you need to determine is it a counterclockwise entry installation or a clockwise entry installation. As you can see in the two pictures, the turnstile is reversed. So either turnstile, we're standing on the non-secure side at the bottom of the page. If it's a counterclockwise entry installation, then the shield assembly would be on the right-hand side. If it's a clockwise entry installation, then the shield assembly would be on the left-hand side. To anchor the equipment to the concrete, we use expansion anchors. These can be 3/8 expansion anchors or 10 millimeter expansion anchors. As you can see by the red spots throughout the installation, these are the different locations which the concrete anchors will fasten the equipment to the floor. We have 2 to anchor the barrier assembly, 3 to anchor the base plate, and 4 to anchor the shield assembly to completely anchor the turnstile to the floor. The first thing you'll want to do is lay out your turnstile. Using the chart here, you can completely lay out the turnstile. The rotor arm is 24 3/4 inches long. So the opening from the back side of the barrier assembly to the back side of the shield assembly should be 60 inches. From the back side of the barrier assembly to the center point of the turnstile should be 30 inches. Then from the center of the turnstile to the arc of the shield assembly should be 13 3/4, and then from the arc of the turnstile to the back of the shield assembly should be 16 1/4. Using these dimensions, you can completely lay out the turnstile to have it ready for installation on the floor. The typical layout is for a counterclockwise rotation. For clockwise rotating units, the table should be mirrored. So the first thing I want to do is lay out my floor. Establish the center lines to where the center of the turnstile is going to be mounted. Using the dimensions from the previous graph, you can lay out the turnstile as shown here on the sample floor. We're now ready to mount the base plate to the center point. Using 3/8 or a 10 millimeter drill bit, you can drill the holes for the base plate and use your concrete expansion anchors to mount the base plate to the floor. Be sure to check your floor for level before installing the turnstile. You'll want the floor to be level so that you can install the turnstile on a level surface. If the surface is out of level, then you'll need to accommodate using shims. If the surface is more than 3/16 out of level, you should grind or re-pour the floor to accommodate the turnstile installation. After mounting the base plate, it's then time to mount the barrier and the shield assembly. The barrier assembly will mount using 2 concrete expansion anchors. Place the barrier assembly on the lines that you've marked out on the floor, and you can drill right through the barrier assembly in the pre-drilled holes and into the floor for your concrete expansion anchors. You can then set your shield assembly in place, lining it up with the center line and the arc length lines that you put down on the floor. You can then drill through the pre-drilled holes of the shield assembly using your concrete expansion anchors to mount it to the floor. The next step in the installation process will be to build the rotor assembly. The rotor assembly can be built in place or off to the side. You'll have a top and a bottom hub, and you'll have 3 rotor arm assemblies. Each rotor arm assembly will mount to the top and bottom hub as shown in the picture. Using M10 by 20 socket head screws with lock washers, you can mount the rotor assembly to the bottom hub. Once all 3 rotor assemblies are mounted on the bottom, insert the top hub and you can bolt the top hub into place using M10 by 20 socket head screws and lock washers. With the rotor arm assembly built, you can then move it into place to prepare for the infill pieces. The infill pieces will consist of 2 pieces, a mounting strip or retainer angle, and a snap-in infill. The retainer angle will mount to the rotor pieces using M6 nut and an M6 bolt. The bolt will go through one side of the rotor assembly and out the other side, mounting 2 pieces, one on each side of the rotor, to the channel. Once the retainer angle is in place, you can then snap on the infill piece to complete the infill pieces on each side of the rotor. We're now ready to assemble the canopy and mount it to the top of the turnstile. The canopy weighs approximately 370 pounds or 170 kilograms, so the use of a genie lift or material hoist is advised. With the canopy assembly securely on the genie lift, hoist the canopy assembly to the top of the turnstile. Pay close attention to the alignment roll pin and the alignment guide on the top hub of the rotor assembly. Lower the canopy assembly down onto the barrier assembly, shield assembly, and rotor assembly. Using M10 by 20 bolts and spring lock washers and flat washers, connect the canopy using 2 into the barrier assembly and 4 into the shield assembly. This will fasten the canopy to the turnstile frames below. You're now ready to mount the canopy covers. Install the covers with the tabs first. Tighten with the 6 screws and install the second cover. Tighten with its screws. This will conclude the installation of the turnstile. Electrical power can be ran through the shield assembly or the barrier assembly up to the top channel. A conduit raceway is provided through the barrier assembly or the shield assembly should you choose to run the power through the floor. Depending on if your turnstile will be installing next to a wall or storefront, you can also run the conduit raceway to the side of the barrier assembly or shield assembly and bring it in at the top as pictured on the right. There's a knockout in the top of the barrier assembly and shield assembly if you choose to bring it in through the side. Electrical and cable connections. The majority of the wiring will be pre-wired at the factory. However, to be connected in the field, you will have LED 1 and LED 2, which are your in-post lights. These wires will be ran through the barrier assembly and plug in to the LED 1 and LED 2 terminal slots on the control box. On your mains control box, you will have an on-off switch to power on and off the turnstile, the receptacle for the mains power connection, and some wire strainers for the access control to bring in the signals for the card readers or push buttons, whichever form of activation you wish to authorize the turnstile. Access control integration. Once inside the control box, there will be multiple terminals for the access control to land. AG1, AG2, FA1, and FA2 will be inputs from the access control system to the turnstile. AG2 is access granted clockwise rotation. AG1 is access granted anti-clockwise rotation. FA1 is fire alarm anti-clockwise, and FA2 is fire alarm clockwise. Adding a jumper to AG1 or AG2 will put the turnstile into a free passage in that direction. In other words, it'll always be unlocked if a jumper is added across AG2 or AG1 for the anti-clockwise direction. The reason for two fire alarm contacts is some customers, when the event of a fire, would like their turnstile to remain locked in the inbound direction, however, be free egress. Therefore, fire alarm can be landed on the clockwise or anti-clockwise to release in that direction. If the turnstile is desired to release in both directions, then the fire alarm will just be tied across FA1 and FA2. The other terminal strips are for outputs. These are optional outputs that can be ordered with the turnstile. One is a home position switch, so that the turnstile can notify the access control system that it's in its home position. The next two are solenoid 1 and solenoid 2 activation switches, notifying access control that a solenoid is activated, 1 or 2. The last two are rotation detection switches, giving a signal to access control that the turnstile has been rotated clockwise or that the turnstile has been rotated anti-clockwise. Concludes all the integration possible for the turnstile.